I don't see why, if you want to get what you want, why can't you just conform or try to, maybe compromise or try to adopt a different tactic? I don't see why you can't.
This is the exact same argument that is always made in America. For example, when there's a mass shooting, there's a school shooting, and then in the aftermath of the shooting, people come out and start shouting they should enable introduce gun control, stricter legislation, blah 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 blah, and some other people then say, no, you are politicizing the issue. This is not the right time, and you're not being civil about this. We have people are still mourning. Why are you trying to use this time to drive a political agenda and blah blah blah? Or when a black person gets murdered by police in the States, and then maybe a group of black people in the person's community then go out and start protesting or something, and then the usual suspects then come out and say, no, this is not how you register your grievance. Why are you burning down Walmart? This has nothing to do with the protest, blah, blah, blah. You're not being civil, and you're making it difficult for us to understand your point of view by being so abusive all the time. And the point is that, when will it ever be the right time? When will there ever be the right vehicle for expressing grievance? Because at the end of the day, the point is, an election between an incumbent and a challenger is always going to be a referendum on the incumbent.
Of course, yeah.
That's the issue.
Yeah,
so the point of this election wasn't even, we love Peter Obi. No, the point of this election was a rejection of the established order. It was a grievance vote.
Yeah, but you can do both.
So where there is a grievance that is being expressed, you cannot then dictate to people that somebody has beaten them. You now tell them how they should cry. No, that's not how it works.
No, but for me, one thing I observed with Obedience was that you couldn't critique Obi. Obi became like this saint or this god that if you dare to even call out, which there are so many things that Obi did that were wrong.
But the thing is,
many.
Look, when
you couldn't even bring them up.
The three contenders.
You couldn't bring those.
Technically, four. Well, the four contenders.
Yeah.
So 3 contenders. So it was Obi, it was Atiku, it was Tinubu.
Yeah.
So when the person that you want to criticize is up against somebody who has a federal conviction, for who has a federal indictment for corrupt practices, and someone who has a federal conviction for heroin trafficking. And then we are now leaving those two to go and say, Obi said this, Obi did not say that, Obi built this school, did not, or he saved, or he put money inside this company. Dude, like, it's like the hypocrisy is off the scale.
No, it's not hypocrisy.
There's a log.
You can do both.
There's a log inside people's eyes.
David, you can
and
do
they say,
both.
no, we want to focus on this toothpick.
David, you can do both. You can criticize Tinubu, Atiku, and Obi, and still vote for Obi. You can do that.
I completely beg to disagree, because the scale of reference.
No, but surely
is not, there is no scale of reference.
No, but surely there are some things you don't like with Obi that you can call out. Surely there are so many things that you can.
Why
see.
is it so important to call it out when
the other
two alternatives are
so
much
let me give
worse?
an example, right? I believe that Obi was a mediocre governor. I believe he didn't do well. You know what that does to Peter Obi when he becomes president? He will strive to do excellence for Nigeria.
So by expressing that during the what function? What function does that serve?
I want to be when he becomes. I want him to know, sir. Listen, you didn't do well as governor of Anambra State. The roads that you built.
Why can that criticism not wait until after the election?
But why should it? Sir, you're trying to become my president. I need to assess you. I need to convince me that when you become president, you're gonna do better. But when you believe as Obi, you're this god or this saint that you did well. You know what are you gonna do when you become president? You're gonna do the same thing again.
So I want you to know Peter Obi that expressing. But the point is that whether what's his name, Peter Obi is going to convince you or is not going to convince you. That's not going to happen at that point.
No, but that's what he's trying to do. You're campaigning to convince me. The truth is that the point of campaigning is you're trying to convince me and Nigerians to vote for. That's the whole point of campaigning.
Within about 5 minutes of knowing who all the contestants were, everybody who was going to vote already knew who they were going to vote for.
No, but
there was nothing like this person is going to convince me.
No, but
Peter Obi versus Tinubu. So let Obi convince me. Let's be serious.
But that's what campaigns are for. You're campaigning.
That's ideally what campaigns are for. But when you have a human being campaigning against an animal.
But if you're a newcomer, you're trying to convince me you're gonna make Nigeria great, right? Tell me how you're gonna do it,
my dear.
No, I don't just want to believe that you're gonna do it. Tell me, sir. Convince me.
I think you've been in the UK for a very long time.
I was in Nigeria last year, so I know this is.
I think you think that this is an election between what's his name? What's the former Labour leader? Jeremy Corbyn and Theresa May. two human beings who have something upstairs,
Yeah.
who are well educated,
Yeah.
and who have some base level of
Yeah.
respectability and integrity.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think that's what you mistake this for.
No,
Because this past Nigerian election, my dear, it was not that. This past Nigerian election was literally an election between a human being of some description. Now, whether or not you want to say this is a premium human being or this is somebody who lives in the gutter, a human being of some description and a tadpole.
yeah.
So when it's literally a 50-50 choice between a human being and a tadpole,
Yeah.
to be honest, I'm not really interested in hearing that
So-
this human being was a mediocre governor in 2005.
So you argue-
That's not really my
okay.
concern.
So
Because if this person is a mediocre governor, so therefore that means okay, let me see what this other person has to say. Let me see whether this person can convince me. Why? This is a tadpole. It's not a human being. I don't respect.
I disagree.
I don't
bro.
respect the
Yeah.
candidacy
Yeah.
of Bola Ahmed Tinubu.
Yeah,
I don't
but-
respect
but
it enough.
It doesn't mean that you can't call out Peter Obi. Okay, let me ask you this question, sir, David. Tell me one thing you don't like about Peter Obi.
I don't like the fact that he. Okay, I might get into trouble for saying this, but I actually quite dislike the fact that he doesn't. Sometimes he wants to sort of avoid offending people. too much.
Queers and yeah. I agree.
So he
Exactly.
knows very well that he has a very energized movement behind him, but at the same time, the political establishment doesn't want to upset them too.
And we agree. And this is one thing I don't like.
So,
yeah, exactly.
For example, I think it was. I'm not able to mention the Wole Soyinka thing because, I think that has been overflogged. Even before then, during the actual electoral campaigns, I remember there was a time when these people tried to create some kind of non-existent scandal surrounding. I think one of his independent support groups went and printed his picture on a prayer mat. Or
Yeah, I
something
saw
like
that. I saw that. Yeah. I
Or
saw
it was even an APC group
Yeah, yeah.
printed his picture on a prayer mat.
Yeah, I saw that,
And they put it on the internet to make it look
Yeah,
as
yeah,
if
yeah.
Peter Obi people are disrespecting Islam,
Yeah.
right? And what I would have done in that situation is that I would simply have said, this has nothing to do with me. I didn't authorize this, and I suspect that this came from the APC camp. This is what you people do. I left it at that. Instead, he started doing shalaye. And he basically ended up apologizing. I'm like, why are you apologizing for what you didn't do? Because by apologizing, you are giving them something to. Because the minute you apologize, they will let it go.
Yeah, of
they will
course.
even now double down and to create a whole edifice of nonsense on top of it, because that's what they excel at doing. Creating edifices of nonsense out of straw man that they built. So as far as I'm concerned, don't even acknowledge it.
Yeah.
Or if you have to acknowledge it, tell them to fuck off.
Yeah.
That's personally what I would do.
Yeah.
But I mean, I've spoken to the man a couple of times, and he strikes me very much as, and to be honest, that's probably the reason why he's a lot more successful than I am. He's a lot more successful at managing people.
Yeah, but the issue with that is, let me just add to that. When you call Tinubu and Atiku your elder brothers, for me, that one was a no-no for me as well.
That's him being a politician.
Nah, but
I personally wouldn't have done that.
Exactly. That's my
would
point.
never have
And
done
that's
that.
my point. And you could see that he has changed now. He doesn't call them his brothers anymore.
I
Because
personally would have
if
done
they were
that.
your brothers, they won't see the election from you.
It's something I even said it on Twitter. Like I don't like the few times I've spoken to him. It's just been sort of, I don't like sort of giving him political advice or anything. I mean, he's 10 times politician I'll ever be. So I don't like sort of straying too far outside of my field of knowledge. But I think I've said it on Twitter a couple of times that look, you have a support base which is overwhelmingly young, which is very energized, and it's not something to be ashamed of. Lean into it. And the reason is, if that was Bola Tinubu, who had a support base that was actually organic, he wasn't spending money to make these people pretend to support him, that these people actually supported him because they wanted to, like this person meant that much to them. If that was Tinubu, I mean, throughout the campaign, did you ever see Tinubu apologize for anything? Even once?
No.
How many?
I can't remember.
Tinubu's entire campaign was built on
Local.
dishonesty, violence, and vote
It's
buying.
my tone,
And intimidating people. This entire campaign, how many times did you see them videos of them going around beating people up around Lagos? He never came out for one day to apologize or to even just call for calm or anything like. In fact, he was the very last candidate to sign the peace accord. For many months, he refused to sign it. you know, and nothing happened. The sky didn't fall down. So I just feel as if that's who you're up against,
I think he's learned his lessons though.
why are you?
I think he's learned now.
And this also, and this boils down to the previous point I was trying to make with you, like the new guy on the block. I fundamentally disagree with the idea that that person should be held to higher some non-existent standard of behavior compared to what is already on ground. I agree it should be held to a higher standard of behavior. But when you now, so the current standard, the Tinubu standard is on the floor.
Yeah, pig
right?
level.
Now, this guy is on the table. You're now saying, no, why is it not on the ceiling? I have a problem with that.
So your opinion, do anything that the new guy can do to get power, do it and get power. You know,
if the new guy is demonstrably better than the old guy and will be demonstrably an upgrade on the old guy, I don't see why not, to be honest, because that's the reality of Nigerian politics.
Yeah.
What I've seen in the short time that I've been around is that the people who come back, I've seen this with Pat who told me, like, so Prof Pat is he's like my mentor, right? And you know he has been involved in politics too.
Of course,
This has happened to him multiple times since so in 1999 when democracy came back and he didn't run for election in Delta State because all of them were still skeptical. So they allowed the criminals to run first. And then by 2003, they all realized their mistake and they all tried to run and those people had already locked them out, right? And the multiple times that he has run for governor, he has run for president, the multiple times he has tried to enter the political space, he has faced the same issue. The part who told me of Lagos Business School, of the bank board, this very respectable gentleman who, you understand, like, Prof. Pat is literally one of the straightest men in the world. Like, he's like a ruler. You understand? Like, he's one of those people that, you know, when you're crossing the road, like, maybe you've pushed that button and the light hasn't turned, the man hasn't turned green yet, but there's no traffic coming. Most people will just cross. Prof. Pat is the kind of person who waits, even if there's no car come until it turns green. Then he'll cross. Very straight-laced guy this. And every time he has tried to venture into politics using that vision that I am holding myself to this stratospheric standard of behavior. You understand? So all the PDP and APC people around him, the candidates he's competing against, those ones are just pumping money into everything, buying voters, even his own, the parties he used to run under, his own, his own polling agents. They will buy his own polling agents.
You understand? As well,
And he'll be like, you know what? I don't expect you to work for me because of money. I expect you to work for me because you believe in my candidate. He'll be speaking English to them. Meanwhile, everything he's saying is just, you understand? Because that's how Nigeria is. So every single time he will venture into politics, he will get comprehensively trounced because he's holding himself to an impossible standard. I believe that when you are up against some of these people, no matter how much better than them you think you are, right? You have to enter some rogbodinho with them.
This is Machiavelli now.
Yeah. You have to be ready to enter somewhat. It doesn't mean that you want to kill people like they do.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that you commit crimes like they do. But so if you're on a Twitter space last night, I think what's his name, Honorable Tony Nwulu, he was on that space with me, where he discussed how he was able to get the not too young to run bill passed. And I'm quoting him, I'm paraphrasing what he said, but he said there was basically a certain measure of blackmail involved because he was the one pushing the bill. He's obviously his colleagues in the house didn't want anything to do with that bill. You know, anything that involves youth participation, they want nothing to do with it. And he was able to get through to the speaker, and the speaker had already told him, look, you're a first-time representative, first-time reps never get any major constitutional amendment passed. So my dear, rest. It's not happening. And he basically blackmailed the guy that, you know, this thing that happened a while back in London, you know, I have a video of this thing. The person that was involved sent me the video. I have it on my phone. And I didn't put this video out to anybody. You know, I kept it because I respect you, blah, blah, blah. And essentially, the thrust of what he was saying was, if you don't help me push this thing, I'll go release your fuck up for public. You understand? And it worked. And then the second layer of the blackmail, quote unquote, he was able to interface with people on social media and in the media space to put out the phone numbers of all the reps in the house, especially the ones who had indicated that they didn't want this bill to pass. And overnight, there was this huge text message and calling campaign. Their constantly started calling them, cursing them, threatening their families. Some even called their wives to threaten them to that if you don't pass this bill, you understand, we'll kill you, that kind of thing. Like, obviously, that's extreme. But guess what?
It works.
The bill passed.
Yeah.
And it worked. So if the trade-off of having such a positive piece of legislation pass was that a few people got to be upset in the process, I say, well, they should go fuck themselves.
Yeah, the difference is that one worked, this one did not work. That's the difference.
Well, that's
where we are.
According to Mahmoud.
Do you think as a journalist that you should be supporting Peter Obi?
Well, the truth is that everyone, whether journalist or not, has a political preference. And I think the most honorable thing to do is to declare your position up front. Because I think what a lot of journalists, particularly in Nigeria, do, which I find abhorrent, is that they pretend that they are an abstraction. They're above it all. They are not part of the political space. They're just these impartial commentators. Meanwhile, of course, they have their own bias.
100%. Yeah.
And everything they are doing is biased in a certain direction. You understand? But you are not declaring your bias, so you are pretending to be what you are not. I think that's a very scummy thing to do. So I would rather tell you that, look, the one thing I'll never do is lie on behalf of Peter Obi, because obviously, as a journalist, the minute I tell a lie, I've lost my credibility and I've lost my career. Right? I'll never tell a lie. I'll never distort the truth. I'll never tell a half-truth for the sake of Peter Obi. However, I would declare my bias up front, that this is the person I would prefer to win this election. And this is also the person that, if all else fails, I don't want this person anywhere near. I will even hold my nose and manage Atiku instead of this person. I think that's the honest thing to do.
I agree, but don't you think that may preclude you or stop you from criticizing him and writing articles not against him really, or saying things that you
So, I mean, part of the reason why I even have a level of support for him in the first place was because after doing some, level of research into all the three major candidates, or the four major candidates, assuming you include Kwankwaso in there, it becomes very clear that this is the one who, if you are going to write criticism of Peter Obi, you're going to end up writing one very intellectual, highfalutin stuff.
I don't think so, though.
I
don't think
what
so.
I mean by that is that you are not going to be writing, Peter Obi sold drugs in Chicago.
Yeah, but there are some things that you can. There are some things that you. Like, let me give you an example.
Peter Obi inflated contract.
Let me give you an example. Let me give you an example. Right, when Peter Obi was governor, I've said this publicly, so I'm not scared to say this here. When he was governor of Anambra State, the bodies of about 50 young men were found in a river in Anambra State. One question that could be asked, you could say that, well, that's SARS. Peter Obi had nothing to do with SARS. My pushback to you will be that, as governor of Anambra State, you have something to do with SARS. SARS operates under you. Yes, of course, constitutionally, it's
federal
police and the federal, but you can't tell me that you didn't know. Did you conduct an investigation when it happened? Did you hold a press conference? What's the guy's name that does all these documentaries? He's quite big on social media. Did a documentary about this same killing as well. You could see the sister of one of those boys. She had to sleep with the police officer, one of those SARS guys, for something, just to know where her brother was or something of that nature. I know I'm getting this wrong, but the point was she had to not sell her body, she had to give her body just to find out her brother's whereabouts. And then eventually the brother was found dead. And as governor of Anambra State, I know when that happened. I was in Anambra when that happened. It was big news. From Peter Obi, nothing. Quiet, mute. And up to today, I always ask myself, why? 50 young men dead in a river. Yes, of course, we all know it's SARS or Kozo. I've been to SARS or Kozo myself. I know, I've met James Wanfo. But as governor, you can't tell me that you didn't know. It's either you didn't know, which in that case, I'm sorry, you have to know. That's your job as governor. Number two is that you gave the order. I don't think you did. You can't tell. You could. I don't think Peter Obi will tell SARS to go and kill 50 young men. But the point I'm making is the initial point, which is that perhaps he didn't know, which is wrong. You have to know. And so for me, that is something that you can write about, which is a big story. That the LP presidential candidate, this man that claims to be the new guy, when he was governor of Anambra State, bodies were found in a river, floating on a river. It was big news in Anambra State.
So yeah, you could.
And nobody, and when this last election, Nobody talked about it. It was quiet.
You could write about that, but the issue with that is it's tangential.
No, but it's just like saying Wike. Okay, look at Wike now, for example. Like, look at what Wike is doing. Just like saying that what is happening in the river, say Wike has nothing to do with it. Of course he does.
Because Wike was directly involved in the electionary process.
But I don't mean the election. I mean as per telling police officers to go and arrest somebody or go and close somebody's shop, which was what Wike was doing, right? Or what we tagged that Wike was doing. So we could make the claim that Peter Obi told SARS to go and do this, because we don't know whether Peter Obi did or did he didn't. We don't know. He's not coming out to say that whether he did or. But again, my point is that
I can understand why a story like that could be written.
Yeah.
But if you read the kind of work I do,
I don't mean you per se. I mean
the only type of
yeah.
work that I put out is what I can prove with receipts.
No, but the receipts, they can go on Google and browse 50 young men.
What I mean by receipts is something that will
that guy's documentary. That guy's documentary.
No,
speak
that's
to the
not what
family
I mean by
members.
receipts. I mean something that will directly and
You
comprehensively.
didn't mortuary. What did you do? Okay, so that will
link
link
it to
Okay, I
Peter
get your
Obi.
point. Sorry, I get your point. Yeah.
So otherwise, it's tangential.
Okay, yeah, I get it. But my point, my point was just, by declaring for Peter Obi, that's and maybe not you, but other journalists, when you declare for a candidate, whether you openly or not openly, that precludes you from seeing or publicizing this or even asking this question. That's my point. I don't know if you get. If you get what I mean.
Yes, and it is a good point.
Yeah.
It is a good point. It's potentially it could be an issue, especially if the journalist believes that, well, this is the best candidate, so let's not even waste my energy going after this person. It is an issue. Yeah. And my pushback to that will then be that it's then the job of other journalists who have opposing preferences to do that. So I think you will find that anywhere in the world, there's no such thing as an all-in-one journalist and all-in-one press establishment. Every press establishment always has its own bias or its own niche. So you are more likely to see, in the US, for example, you are likely to see NBC, CNN focus on Republican scandals. And you're more likely to see Fox News focus on Democrat scandals. They balance each other. So that's what it's supposed to be. So if someone like me, if I'm going after Tinubu, I'm sure there are several journalists who are even on Tinubu's payroll.
Of course,
who could have gone after Peter Obi.
Tinubu owns now TVC,
and The Nation. They could have gone after Peter Obi. They could have, this story that you've just mentioned, they could have done something with it. They didn't.
And I think that's balancing, that tit for tat will help our conversation and help Nigeria, because that will tell people to be, listen, when you become president, you need to know this thing. You can't just say, oh, I don't know what SSS is doing.
I agree.
So